والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: فاسألوا أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون. صلوات عليك براد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in one of the famous ayat of Quran, He says, go and ask those who have the knowledge if you do not know. It's a very simple, and clear instruction that whenever we don't know, we have to go to those who know. One of the areas where this question comes again and again is the rationalization or the purpose behind the commandments that we have in the Sharia. Almost for everything we have this question, why? And there is nothing wrong with it. However, we should not always expect the answer according to our own intelligence and according to our own, materialistic or scientific explanation of things. Because we are still in the shallow areas of the ocean of knowledge. If you look at the process of, Islamic laws and trying to rationalize them, why is it wajib, what is haram, we can divide the whole body of the Sharia law into 4 areas. There are things which are very obvious. You don't have to be a scholar or a scientist to understand certain wajibat and certain muharramat. We know now, it's very simple when we say backbiting is haram, killing someone is haram, to help the poor is highly recommended. These are very obvious things. Then we come to the areas where, for example, the Quran and the Hadith has been very clear about the reasoning. Maybe it was not that obvious, but the Quran talked about it. For example, the difference between riba and tijarat. What is the difference between, getting and seeking interest or usury as opposed to making money by business and trade? And Quran says that those who consider that to be one and the same, they are actually confused, and their minds have been confused because of the touch of the shaitan. So this is not obvious, but it is there in the Quran and Hadith, very clear about it. Then we come to the 3rd section of the 4 areas of the Sharia laws, where it is not very obvious to us. Quran and Hadith have given the command, but they have not explained the reasoning for it. But later on, human science developed further, and now there are things that we know why Islam made it haram 1400 years ago. Or why did Islam say do this in this way? Then we are left with the last one, not the last segment of the Sharia law, which is neither obvious, nor the Quran and Hadith have explained the reason for it, and the science has not yet come with the answer for that. What do you do there? And this is where we have to realize that if we believe this is from Allah, Rasul and the Imam, even if we do not understand the reasoning behind it, our duty is to accept it and do it. And continue the search for finding the rationale and the reasoning behind those laws. But just because we do not understand, we cannot say, okay, I'll suspend this and not do it until I myself can understand it. Because that goes against the whole concept of being a Muslim, which means to submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat. Tonight I would like to share with you, since this is the week of the wiladat of Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi salatu wassalam, just a section from 2 very long ahadith from the 8th Imam on this issue of, ilal or illat, the reasoning for certain rulings in the Sharia. Imam Rizvi alayhi salam probably is the Imam who had more ahadith than other Imams after the 5th and the 6th Imam. And Sheikh Saduq has compiled them in a book known as Uyun Akhbar Ridha. The English translation is now also available of that. And in that, there are two very interesting narrations. One is from Muhammad bin Sanan and the other is from Al-Fadl bin Shawwan, where both individuals actually have asked questions about the reasoning of various rules of the Sharia. And Imam gives the reasoning for that. Tonight I just selected one or two sections dealing with something we do every day, just to understand, what is the Imam's perspective about these issues. One is about Wudhu, where he says, فَإِنْ قَالَ قَائِلٌ فَلَمْ أُمِرُوا بِالْوُضُوءِ, that why were people, instructed to do wudu before the salat? This is where Imam says that the answer would be لأن يكون العبد طاهرا إذا قام بين يد الجبار. It is very obvious that when salat, you do wuzu for salat. And salat means what? You are going to stand in audience, keeping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-Jabbar, the powerful one, in your minds. وعند مناجاته إياه, and you are going to be talking to him and you will be obeying him. And one of the things that he has asked us to do is that we should be نقيا من الأدناس والنجاسة, that we should be clear from all the filth and the dirt. And so wuzu is one way of, making ourselves presentable in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مع ما فيه. And then Imam says there are other reasons also. When you do wudu, you are basically using water. There are other benefits for it. من ذهاب الكسل وطرد النعاس. Your tiredness will go. You're half sleepy when you go for wuzu in the morning. When you do the wuzu, put the water on your face, you wake up. And so there are all other reasons also. But تزكية الفؤاد. And by going through the process of doing wudu, you actually are mentally and spiritually preparing yourself, for ibadat. Because you are now in the process. You just don't get up from the bed in the morning and stand up on the musalla. You go and do the wudu. That itself gives you the time to prepare yourself mentally and spiritually, for the ibadat itself. Then Imam raises the question himself. He says, فَإِنْ قَالَ قَائِلٌ, if somebody asks the question, فَلِمَا وَجَبَ ذَلِكَ عَلَى الْوَجْهِ وَالْيَدَيْنِ وَالرَّعْسِ وَالرِّجْلَيْنِ, why was wuzu made wajib? The organs of wuzu are the face and the hands and the head and the feet. And this is where Imam says the answer would be that when you stand up in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the parts of the body which you use in wuzu, these are the ones which are used in ibadat. For example, it is the face, which is used for sajda and the expression of humility. You put your forehead down on the turba and to express the sujood and the humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We use the hands to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we talk about qunut, for example. And it is by our head that we face the direction towards the qibla, and that is how we go into ruku and sajda. That is the part which is the mode of direction there. And it is by our feet that we stand up and sit down in the namaz. So Imam is saying these are the organs which are basically used in ibadat, and therefore the obligation of wuzu apply on these four parts. Then the question was, why washing for the face and the hands, forearms, and why wiping for the head and the feet? And this is a Shi'i wuzu we are talking about. Why was not washing for all four parts or masa for all four of them? Why two and two? Imam says, قِيلَ لِعِلَلٍ شَطَّةٍ, for different reasons. And he explains three of them. Number one, he says, if you look at the ibadat, the main part of ibadat in namaz is the ruku and the sujood. Qiyam is you just stood up, you're getting ready. Ruku, you are halfway in expressing your humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you go into sajda, which is the ultimate way of, expressing our humility. And so ruku and sujood become the main part of the ibadat. And if you look at it, it is done by the face and the hands, not by the head or the feet in that way. ومنها أن الخلق لا يطيقون في كل وقت غسل الرأس والرجلين. Secondly, Imam says, people do not have the ability to wash their head and feet all the time. It becomes difficult for them during the time of winter, when they are traveling, when they are not feeling well, and not all the times of the day and the night they can do that. Whereas washing of the face and the forearms is simpler and easier than washing of the head and the feet. Therefore, this is how it has been made easy and convenient, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated things according to the ability of the normal human being. Salawat. And the third reason of why there is difference in washing and wiping, Imam says, the way the face and the hands are exposed most of the time, it doesn't happen when it comes to the head and the feet. And so those areas are mostly open, and therefore washing them would be more easier. Salawat. Another part of the hadith from the second one, Al-Fadl bin Shadhan, which is, there are different questions there, and this one is about Ghusl Mayyit. We hear this question many times, and especially when the death takes place in the family and they are there, they see what is being done, questions start up. Why this? Why this way? And one of the things is about Ghusl al-Mayyit. And Imam explains why we do the ghusl. Number one, of course, it is very obvious. لأنه يطهر وينظف من أدناس أمراضه وما أصابه من صنوف إلله. The very obvious reason for ghusl mayyit is that the body is being purified from all the impurities because of the health, sickness at that time, or whatever was happening during the last moments of life. Why should the body be pure and clean at that time? We are going to bury it. This is where we have to realize the dimension after death, which is not there obvious to us. And this is where Imam says that the body is being purified. Why? لأنه يلقى الملائكة. Number one, now he is going to meet the malaika. Number two, يباشر أهل الآخرة. He is now going to meet the people of the Akhirah. And as Shias of Ali, we believe that, we will meet our awliya after death. And so, فَيُسْتَحَبُّ إِذَا وَرَدَ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَلَقِيَ أَهْلَ الطَّهَارَةِ وَيُمَسُّونَهُ وَيُمَاسُّوهُمْ أَنْ يَكُونَ طَاهِرًا نَظِيفًا مُوَجِّهًا بِهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. And therefore, keeping that perspective in mind, that after death, you are going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, Allah not physically, but you're going to meet the malaika. Wa ahl al-tahara. Ahl al-tahara is ahl al-bayt. And they will touch you, and you will touch them. Think about that. And if that is what is going to happen to those who are the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is how the body is being prepared. It has to be أن يكون طاهرا, pure, نظيفا, clean, because it is going towards the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By being in that state at that time, the purpose would be لَيُطْلَبَ بِهِ وَيُشْفَعَ لَهُ, that, he will be welcomed by Ahlul Tahara, and they will become the shafi and intercessors for him or her after the death. Salawat. On a different level, Imam says, just as certain things discharge from our body when we are alive, and also becomes wajib, similarly, at the time of death also, this happens. And therefore, that also becomes a reason for the ghusl mayyit becoming wajib. Now, why do we have three types of ghusl? We'll not go into that here. The issue of the pure water, sidr and kafur. Kafur is more simpler and easier to understand. Basically, it gets rid of the smell from the body because it has that element. And when it comes to sidr, maybe those who are in the field of chemistry, they should go and research what are the properties of that leaf known as sidr, and what happens if it is used for the water of that is used for washing the body. One of the things which happens is hunut. The camphor was also grounded into powder and put on 7 parts which touch the ground in sajda. Again, it is to, in a way, create this freshness in those areas where we were in the state of sajda. Inshallah, with that, the mu'min and mu'minat will have a nur to help them in that path, because the salat al-mustaqim doesn't stop there. It ends on the day of Qiyamah. Salawat. In one of the hadiths, Imam even talked about the reason why we have 5 takbir in the janazah prayers, namaz and janazah. There are 2 different hadiths, and both are, talking from different perspective. One Imam says that this is, although we call it salat, but it's not really a salat like the normal one. There is no ghusl required for it, no taharat required for it, no wudhu. And we see there are no surahs recited in it. But we call it namaz. And why there are 5 takbirat in the Ja'fari fiqh? Imam, in one hadith he says, this is a namaz, in place of the 5 daily prayers. Because the daily prayers there are 5, therefore we have 5 takbirat. And in between those 5 takbirat, we have 4 azkar. Now that zikr, even if we do in the form of Jamaat prayer, and that is how it is normally done, everyone has to recite the zikr, because even in the namaz Jamaat of the normal namaz, the surahs are done by the Imam, but the zikr for ruku and sajda, or qunut and tashahud and salam is done by everyone. So since there are no surahs there in namaz janazah, all the zikr have to be done by everyone. And it is very simple. And I discourage this system of, printing it and give it to the people. Everyone, the whole Jamaat is standing with this piece of paper reciting it. Or sometimes they say, can we put it on the screen? So everybody's looking up, doing namaz janazah. It's not the normal way of doing it. Just follow the Imam. The Imam, whoever is leading the namaz can be asked to go a little bit, slower than the normal pace. Or, even if you cannot follow everything, just remember it's very simple. And I'm sure after 3 minutes, everyone here would remember that. After the first takbir, the minimum zikr is shahadatain. Everybody knows that. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika la, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. You doesn't necessarily have to follow what the Imam is saying. You can do it on your own. So after the first takbir, shahadatain, every Muslim knows that. After the second tasbih, salawat. You know that? After the third takbir, Dua for the mu'minin and mu'minat. Allahumma aghfir lil mu'minin wal mu'minat. So simple. And after the fourth one, and the last zikr, Allahumma aghfir li hadha al-mayyit. Or you say li hadhihi al-mayyit. Only haza or hazihi will change depending on the gender of the mayyit. That, oh Allah, forgive this mayyit. So it's that simple, and I'm sure we can, if we do daily namaz, we can remember that much. And so the main thing is that, we do it. And in another hadith, Imam Rizvi alayhi salatu wassalam, salawat alayhi gives the reason that why there are 5 takbir from a different angle. It says the arkan of Islam are 5. Namaz number 1, fasting number 2, zakat number 3, hajj number 4, and the vilayat of Ahlul Bayt number 5. And therefore you will see in the Shia fiqh, in namaz janaza we have 5 takbirat. In other fiqh they have 4, but in Shia fiqh an Imam says, and this reason is why we have 5, because we go by this arkan of deen, where the 5th one represents the vilayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Now that I'm talking about these hadiths about Wudhu and Ghusl and namaz janaza, let me just, mention one point that I hear, especially from the ladies' side, that when we talk about namaz janaza, since there is no ruku and sajda, so, we keep the distance between the first row and the second and the third. But I think on the ladies' side, I'm told they think you have to be as close as possible, with the lady in the back, breathing right on the neck of the person who is in the front. And they say, oh, you should, you should be closest. There is nothing like that. Even in namaz-e-jamaat, normal namaz, where we have to leave the, space for our sajda, even between that area where we are going to do sajda to the row in front of you, you can still have a distance of 1 step of a normal height person. Okay? So if that distance is allowed in the wajib namaz, that much distance in the namaz janaza, so it's not really that you really have to go and stand right away, right behind the person. It's not queuing up for something somewhere. No. It is namaz janaza. Keep the distance, normal, and it should be okay. We don't want to, make things sometimes inconvenient for the mu'mineen and mu'minat who come to do these kinds of a'mal in the center. Salawat. इमाम रज़ा अलैहिस्सलाम ने गुस्ल मैयत के हवाले से जो बातें की हैं, एक लिहाज से बहुत ही वाज़ेह है कि इंसान जब इस दुनिया से जाता है तो गुस्ल देने की एक वजह यह है कि इंसान उस जिस्म को पाक और ताहिर बनाए, खुसूसन इस बात को देखते हुए कि मरने के बाद कब्र में और उसके बाद जो है किन से मुलाकात होने वाली है। अगर आपको याद है, सिब्त जाफ़र शहीद ने अपने उसे एक कलाम में अजीब जुमला कहा था कि हमारे ये उजले मलबूस को, वाइट कवर को कफन मत कहो, और हमारे ये वॉशिंग को गुस्ल मत कहो, इसलिए कि हम तो अपने इमाम से मिलने जा रहे हैं। ये हमारा वो लिबास है जो साफ है, जो वाइट है, इमाम को मिलने जा रहे हैं, इसलिए इस तरह से हम तैयार हो रहे हैं। उस पर्सपेक्टिव से अगर देखा जाए तो बहुत से बातें जो हैं हमारे लिए क्लियर हो जाती है कि क्यों हमारे लिए ज़रूरी होता है कि मैयत को जो है उस तरह से तैयार किया जाए। इसलिए कि उनकी मुलाकात मलाइका से होने वाली है। उनकी मुलाकात इंशाअल्लाह अगर सही मानों में शिये अली और आले अली हैं तो मासूमीन भी वहाँ मदद के लिए मुख्तलिफ मराहिल में मौजूद रहेंगे, और इसलिए मैयत को उसी तरह से तैयार किया जाता है। लेकिन فقہ میں ایک مسئلہ ہے کہ یہ جو میت کی ہم بات کرتے ہیں کہ وہ نجس ہے، اس حد تک میت نجس ہے کہ جو میت کے سرد ہونے کے بعد اور غسل میت سے پہلے کوئی ٹچ کرے تو خود اس شخص کے لیے غسل کرنا واجب ہو جاتا ہے، غسل مس میت. تو اتنے یعنی جہاں تک نجاست کا مسئلہ ہے اس طرح سے. لیکن ایک عمل ہے شریعت میں جو اتنا پاورفل ہے کہ اس عمل کی وجہ سے شریعت کے نارمل قوانین بدل جاتے ہیں، ٹوٹلی اپ سائڈ ڈاؤن ہو جاتے ہیں. مثلا ہمارے یہاں ہم جانتے ہیں کہ انسان جب مر جاتا ہے، میت ہو جاتا ہے، تو وہ نجس ہے جب تک غسل نہ دیا جائے. اور اسی طرح سے خون جو ہے وہ نجس ہے، وہ بدن یا لباس جس پر خون لگا ہوا ہے وہ بھی نجس ہے. لیکن ایک عمل ہے کہ جس کے بعد کوئی عمل ہو بھی نہیں سکتا ہے. انسان جب اپنی سب سے قیمتی چیز کو جو اس کی جان ہے وہ جب اللہ کے حوالے کر دے اور جب شہادت کے مرتبے پر فائز ہو جاتا ہے تو اس شہید کے لیے قوانین شریعت کے بدل جاتے ہیں. پھر اس شہید کی باڈی جو ہے وہ نجس نہیں ہے، اس کو غسل دینے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے. نہ صرف یہ کہ اس کو غسل دینے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے، وہ لباس جس میں اسے قتل کیا گیا ہے، چاہے اس پہ خون لگا ہو، اس کے باڈی میں خون لگا ہو، اس کو بھی ہم لوگ پاک و پاکیزہ سمجھتے ہیں. اس کو کفن کی بھی ضرورت نہیں ہے، اسی حالت میں اس کو انسان اگر چاہے تو دفن کر سکتا ہے. منع نہیں ہے کفن دینا یا غسل دینا، لیکن ان کے لیے یہاں مستثنا ہے. قانون بدل جاتا ہے شہادت کے عمل کی وجہ سے، اس لیے کہ شہادت کا عمل وہ عمل ہے کہ جس کی وجہ سے پھر کوئی حساب کتاب کا سلسلہ بھی نہیں ہے. معصوم سے پوچھا گیا تھا کہ یہ کیوں ہم لوگ سنتے ہیں آپ حضرات سے کہ شہید سے سوال جواب نہیں ہونے والا ہے. امام فرماتے ہیں کہ اس کے سر کے اوپر جب تلوار کی چمک ہوتی ہے وہی اس کے سوال و جواب کے لیے کافی ہے. ضرورت نہیں ہے کہ اسے دوبارہ اور پوچھا جائے، اس لیے کہ وہ اس نے اپنی جان دی ہے اپنے دین اور عقیدے کی خاطر. اور یہ عمل اتنا پاورفل ہوتا ہے، نہ صرف یہ کہ اس کا جسم پاک و پاکیزہ ہے، اس کا لباس پاک و پاکیزہ ہے، اس کا خون پاک و پاکیزہ ہو جاتا ہے، بلکہ وہ مٹی جس میں اسے دفن کیا جاتا ہے طابت و طہورت. زیارت وارث میں آپ پڑھتے ہیں نا شہداء کے سلسلے میں کہ آپ جس زمین میں دفنتم فیہا، کہ وہ زمین جس پر آپ کو دفن کیا گیا ہے وہ مٹی بھی آپ سے مس ہونے کی وجہ سے پاک و پاکیزہ ہو جاتی ہے، طاہر و طیب ہو جاتی ہے. یہ در حقیقت عظمت ہے شہداء کی. اور اس لیے جب ہم لوگ شہداء کی بات کرتے ہیں، آپ سوچ لیں کہ کربلا کے شہداء جن کے بارے میں چھٹے امام کے یہ الفاظ ہیں کہ طبتم، کہ تم پاک ہو گئے، وطابت الارض التي فيها دفنتم. نہ صرف یہ بلکہ وہ زمین بھی جس میں تم دفن کیے گئے ہو وہ بھی تمہارے وجہ سے، تم سے متمسک ہونے کی وجہ سے پاک و پاکیزہ ہو جاتی ہے. کربلا میں آپ دیکھیں یہ فضیلت کن لوگوں کو ملی تھی. کچھ وہ لوگ تھے جو بہت پہلے سے اس راستے پہ تھے، کچھ وہ لوگ تھے کہ جو بہت آخر وقت میں اس مرحلے پر آئے ہیں. ان کے لیے در حقیقت ان کا یہ ٹرانسفارمیشن سرعت نور کے مطابق تھا. جناب حر کے مثال کو دیکھ لیں، ایک رات پہلے کہاں پہ تھے اور عاشور کے دن کس منزلے پر تھے. یہ وہ حر ہیں کہ جب ان کی شہادت کے بعد خود امام حسین علیہ السلام ان کے لاش کے پاس آتے ہیں، زمین پر بیٹھتے ہیں، حور کے سر کو اپنے زانوں پہ رکھتے ہیں. عزاداران حسین یہ صرف یہ کہ عام بات نہیں ہے. اگر چاہتے تو حسین کے اصحاب موجود تھے، ان سے کہتے کہ ان کے لاش کی خیریت، ان کے دیکھ بھال کرو، لیکن نہیں، خود آ کے بیٹھتے ہیں، حور کے سر کو اپنے سر پر رکھتے ہیں. یہ ایک علامت تھی اس معراج کی جس پر حور جا رہے ہیں. یہاں تک کہ امام نے جو مرثیہ پڑھا ہے
اس میں ایک جملہ ہے کہ یا رب، یا میرے پروردگار، تو جنت میں اس کی مہمان نوازی کر۔ عزاداران حسین، حسین کی مظلومیت کا یہ پہلو ہے کہ حور جب دشمن بن کے آیا تھا، حسین نے مہمان نوازی کی تھی، پانی دیا تھا۔ عاشور کے دن حور دوست بن کے آیا ہے، لیکن حسین اتنا مظلوم تھے کہ پانی کا ایک کاسا بھی پیش نہ کر سکے، لہٰذا کہتے ہیں خداوندا میری طرف سے مہمان نوازی کرنا حور کا اپنی بارگاہ میں۔ الا لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین سیعلم الذین ظلموا ای منقلب ینقلبون۔ خداوند اس قلیل بات قبول فرما، ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے، ہمارے توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما، امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما۔ ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم۔